We good?
We are good.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Libertarian Convention. We are the Two Doom Men, and we are a local podcast that has been working with the Libertarian Party for about 3 years now. And we are honored to be here today, and we are very excited to take part in this debate. Skaggs, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so before we get started, why don't everybody who's watching, you could go to, especially if you're in Connecticut, go to lpct.org, and you could become a member or contribute to the party. Some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that Joshua Smith is not here today. The good news is that he's having another kid. That's one more libertarian in the world. That's awesome. Congratulations to him and the family. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're going to have a whole bunch of other content from the convention here to be posting in the week after this. Without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to the man of the hour, Mr. Larry Sharpe.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. But I am not the man of the hour. I appreciate that. I want to also bring that, I'm sorry that we don't have Joshua with us, but we also, not in person, we don't have the good Dr. Rechtenwald with us either. Not in person. He is ill, and since he's not a communist, he does not want to share his illness with us. So he decided to instead be a good individual, and he's going to be joining us remotely. So he'll be doing that, which will be great. Tonight, I want to say thank you to the Libertarian Party of Connecticut for hosting us. Appreciate that. We are lucky that we do have 4 in person and 1 candidate actually here via Zoom, which is great. The format this evening will be, we will have a 60-second opening statement from every candidate. We will have about 3 or 4 questions which have been pre-approved before I got here. I did not pick the questions. The questions were picked by the party itself. I will just be moderating those questions. And then we will have audience participation. I hope 2 questions, maybe 3 if we can. So if you are online, please keep watching and put your questions in the comment. I will probably ask people from the room also for a question that we will ask everyone. Everyone will have 90 seconds to respond to every question asked. Let me say it again. Every question asked, everyone will have 90 seconds to respond to. There may be rebuttals if people are mentioned specifically or if I think it's something specific. In addition, each candidate has 2 orange cards. Those orange cards represent 30 seconds. They may use those orange cards to rebut anything they want for 30 seconds. They may add 30 seconds to any rebuttal if they want to, or if they don't use it, they get 60 seconds or whatever's remaining at the end for their closing statement, which would be a minute, so it could go up to 2 minutes if they like. Every rebuttal is only 30 seconds, unless they decide to use their card, in which case they may go a minute or a minute and a half. Any questions from the participants?
Got it.
Excellent. Got it. I love that. I will not intro them. They will intro themselves. I will have each of them do an opening statement right now for 60 seconds. And I will start because of my left to right. I will start left to right with the one and only Mr. Jacob Homburger.
Socialism has proven to be the bane of mankind. And yet, in the South Carolina debate, my honorable opponents here said that we have to continue the socialism of Social Security for the next 30 to 50 years, or 70 years, because they say that America has made a contract with socialism that has to be honored. Who's going to vote for that kind of message? 1% of the electorate. That's what the Wall Street Journal poll is stating right now that we get. If we are going to break into the 10 or 15% category of the national vote, if we're going to lead America to freedom, which is our job in this party, then we need to run a campaign, a presidential campaign that is based 100% on genuine libertarian principles, especially the eradication of socialism from retirement, healthcare, education, and immigration. Otherwise, we stay at the standard at 1%, and we lead America nowhere. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was undertime. Well done. That was the undertime. Thank you. I will be putting up this blue card when you have 5 seconds left, so you know you have 5 seconds left, so wrap it up, your last sentence, whatever the case may be. We can start now, if we would, with the one and only Chase Oliver, please.
Hello, Connecticut. My name is Chase Oliver. I want to be the Libertarian candidate for president. Why do I want to run for president? Because I think it's time for our party to grow and for us time to focus on the wins that we can have as a party. Now, those wins, of course, winning the White House would be the greatest win. I would love to take office and start dismantling the state piece by piece for each and every one of y'all and for my own liberty. But there are other wins that we can have in this country. We can win ballot access in states all over the country that makes it easier for future candidates to run. We can win major party status in states all over the country that allows libertarians to break glass ceilings that we never had before, like I did when I was the first candidate for president who's not a Republican or a Democrat to ever speak at the Iowa State Fair. And we can win by helping thousands of libertarians who want to run all over the country win in winnable races. Now, I want to run because I think I have the energy and enthusiasm to be our candidate for president. We have to run a 50-state campaign for president. I've already visited, tomorrow will be my 42nd state I have visited since January. I'm aiming to visit all 50 states before our nominating convention. Why? Because I think it's time to prove to you exactly what a libertarian candidate for president can look like with energy and enthusiasm. Go to votechaseoliver.com and learn more. I look forward to speaking throughout this debate. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And now moving to my right, Mr. Lars Mapstead.
Thank you, Larry. When I say the system is rigged, you know that that's true. Whether it be our economy is rigged, our healthcare is rigged, our criminal justice system is rigged, our election systems are rigged. All of the systems are rigged. What system is rigged most to you, you know. We need to unrig the system, and how we unrig the system is we start winning as libertarians. I have put together a plan for us to win on election night. Now imagine California is blue, and Texas is red, and Florida is red, and there's a gold on the map on election night. And imagine if we are the deciding factor in the election and we cause Joe Biden and Donald Trump to not become president. That sends it to the House of Representatives to choose, and you know that it's been contentious choosing the Speaker of the House. Imagine picking the President of the United States. This would put us on the map, and it would get rid of this problem of, oh, I would vote for you guys, but you can't win. By winning, we bring money to the party, we bring in new people to the party, we invigorate the party. Go to lars24.com to find out more about my plan.
Excellent, thank you, Lars. And now, Mr. Michael Termont.
Thanks very much. These are three terrific guys, and if anyone says anything negative about any one of them, we're going to have to fight in the hallway, and I mean that. They are absolutely terrific. The campaign that I am putting together is the one that I believe that a lot of you folks sitting in the room tonight are going to be interested in supporting, because we are building a campaign to actually disrupt American politics, to leave the United States a different place in the way that we found it. We are beginning to build a professional campaign right now. We have 15 people on our team that we pay already. We are going to be very much ready for the other side of the nomination. We're running a very different campaign than what you've seen inside the Libertarian Party in the past. We're running with a great deal of professionalism and credibility. We're running based on my own experience in public policy and public service. I was a professional economist for 20 years. I worked for the White House. I've taught economics at 3 different universities. I've had my own business educating financial services professionals. I've been an advocate for free markets in Washington, D.C. for 12 years, and I was a police officer for 12 years until a couple years ago. I look forward to talking to you about that.
Excellent, thank you so much. And lastly, from the internet, from the interwebs, I hope you'll be able to hear him, the one and only Dr. Michael Rechtenwald.
Well, hello, Larry, and thank you for having me. I appreciate the accommodations. As you could tell, I'm not feeling my best, but I'm here, and I'm doing everything I can. I'm running for president as a libertarian. I've been endorsed by Dave Smith, Judge Napolitano, Jeff Dice, the Mises Caucus, and many others. You may know my story. I'm the former NYU professor turned radical libertarian. I became libertarian after the woke mob tried to cancel me at NYU in 2016, and now I've been recently canceled by the right over my stance regarding Israel and its onslaught on Gaza. Now, I'm wrecking the regime. That's what this campaign is about. It's called Wreck the Regime, as you can see from behind me. What does the regime mean? It means government, banking, media, corporate government collusion, academia. It's corporate socialism, woke capitalism. It's social and cultural destabilization and dehumanization. It's Google, the military-industrial complex.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
No worries. So yes, thank you for that. I now want to start with the first question, and this one will start with Chase Oliver. Everyone will get 90 seconds to respond to it. And again, they may use their 30 seconds if they want to rebut or something like that, but it's a straight question. Starting first with Chase. It is very challenging to describe our border right now as anything but a crisis. I think everybody would agree with that. It's a crisis. What would you want the federal government to do, or what would you advocate the federal government to do to help remedy the situation?
Yeah, I think absolutely it is a crisis at our border. We do have an immigration crisis, but we need to remember that it's not immigrants that are causing this crisis. It's the federal government and their immigration policy that is causing this crisis. We can obviously have people who want to come here and work. 99.9% of the people proverbially want to come here and work and just put down their roots and start their American dream. We should facilitate that by opening up the immigration system, radically simplifying it to where if you just come through a port of entry, you declare who you are, you should be able to come right in. This is something that can radically reduce the amount of crime that's related to immigration. It brings all these immigrants who are currently in the shadows out of the shadows so they no longer feel exploited by labor or by the government, and allows people to come here and put down their roots in their American dream just like I did. I was just at Ellis Island about a week and a half ago. 40% of Americans can trace their ancestry back to the registry room in Ellis Island. We need to return back to an Ellis Island style of immigration that lets people come here, put down their roots, and start their American dream. That's the ultimate way we're going to stop this crisis. And we can also reduce the welfare state at the exact same time. But I reject the idea that we can't stand by our principles of free movement of people, goods, labor, and capital while also fighting a welfare state. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we shouldn't be holding back the liberty of immigrants just because our government has a horrible welfare state that exists. We can fight both of those issues at the exact same time, and I think it's time that we treat immigrants with the same amount of respect that we do anybody else. And you know who doesn't do that? The federal government, because they don't treat immigrants like everyone else. They say you only have certain rights if you're here as an American. You can't come here to work. You can't come here to do business. We need to change that. We need free movement of people. We need to open up the immigration system in this country. Absolutely. And that will stop the crisis. Nothing the government's doing right now is helping.
So let me follow if I could. You're saying the federal government right now doesn't treat immigrants effectively? Would you be advocating for a change in the federal policy or something else to replace it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Remove the quotas. Remove anything that the government is putting barriers to letting people to come here and work. Absolutely. And then get people out of cages. Reform the asylum system that we have that is currently broken. We need way more asylum judges, for instance. But we can do that without at all increasing border walls and creating economic incentives to have people not come here. I think it's better just to let the free market decide what immigrants need to come here and work, and not the federal government and central planning.
Thank you for that clarity. Lars, I want to ask you the same question, right? The idea is, what do you think the federal government should do, or what would you advocate for to remedy the situation?
We have chaos at our border. That's the bottom line. And could you imagine if the Internal Revenue Service was our border patrol, and they applied all the 80,000 pages of rules that they put together to determine whether you could come in, how you could come in, how long it would take you, and all the hoops that you would have to jump through? Well, that's actually what we have, but it's called our border patrol, our immigration system. It's colluded. It's a giant cluster F, and you know, it's a rigged system. It's not fair. It's not equal across the board. If you are somebody that's, say, coming from the Philippines and you've married somebody in the United States, it might take you 5 to 10 years to become a legal U.S. citizen. That's ridiculous. When we see people flooding across the border, it's not a fair and equal system. We need to control our system so that it's not chaos, so that we know what's going on and that we can match workers with employers. There's 9 million open jobs right now looking for people for work, but we're not doing a good job of matching people coming across the border with those jobs. And we need to do that so that we don't have all these people end up on welfare and we don't all pay for these people. There is an opportunity for meritocracy to exist and for people to have better lives. Look, most Americans can trace back their roots to Ellis Island. I want to make the system easier and less complex that everybody can understand and end the chaos at the border.
So let me follow up with that. What you're saying, if I hear you a little bit different than Chase, is you're saying you want to just streamline the process for the workers so they can come in, get taken care of, and get to work. Am I reading that correctly or no?
We force people to be illegal, essentially, because the rules are so corrupt. And just like any black market, when people try to get around the rules because the rules are so onerous, we need to make the rules super simple and super easy, just like it was for my great-grandparents coming to America, and let everybody have a chance at the American dream.
Thank you. Michael Termott, same question again. What would you expect the federal government to do, or what would you advocate for to remedy the situation?
Well, this is a relatively simple area, so I'm glad we have these cards. These each represents an hour and a half to,
yes,
to speak
yes.
to this issue.
Each one is
Good.
6 hours.
I'm going to use both of mine because it's going to take that long. In 90 seconds, look, I spent a couple of days down at the border learning as much as I could, meeting with ranchers, with border properties. I met with the local sheriff's office and the Customs and Border Patrol and a number of libertarians down there. And what you find out is that the humanitarian crisis down there is absolutely out of control. Look, immigration is good for the United States. It is one of those things that defines us in contrast to other democracies around the world. It's good for us fiscally, it's good for us economically, it's good for us socially, it's good for us culturally. We need to get people in here in a much more rapid fashion. If you're not on some weird list, you ought to be a priori presumed to be cleared to come in the United States. We do need to protect against illegal immigration, not because we don't want people coming in here as rapidly as possible, but because the humanitarian crisis that we have created with black markets is absolutely deadly. It is disgusting. It is not a good reflection of who we are as a people in terms of our ethics or the way that we should be managing humans' lives. We need to shut down this idea of coyotes and other. This is a family show. I won't describe it in great detail, but we have literally millions of people sold into indentured servitude in the United States. This is not something a libertarian should put up with.
So let me see if I'm clear with you. You're saying more the idea that we should assume that a person coming across the border is not a bad person. And right now we assume the opposite.
That's right. Right now we have a system whereby which you need to prove that you're worthy of coming in, and that should be the prior. We should have to have a system that says we can prove why you shouldn't come in. Otherwise, you're cleared in, and thereby bringing people in so fast that there won't be this incentive to try to come in illegally.
Understood. Thank you. I want to move, if I could, to. Oh, look, I'm clapping. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So I do want to move now to our website, our web person, if I could, Dr. Rechtenwald. If you could answer that same question, please. Again, the question is, with our border issue, what would you either advocate for or expect the federal government to do to remedy it?
Thank you. I think the proper position for libertarians on the question of immigration is to treat it from a property rights perspective. If we lived in a perfect private property society, the only borders that would exist would be the borders around your property. We don't live in that world. We live in a state. We have a state that claims property for itself illegitimately. That really is the property of citizens. Likewise, I believe that we should have an invitation-only immigration policy that's invitation from property owners, business owners, and what have you, spouses and so forth. With invitations, people can enter. We need more ports of entry to facilitate this. This is actually a liberal policy, but it also protects property rights. And those who invite someone should be held liable for what they do in terms of economics and other behavior.
Thank you for that. I want to, if I could, are you saying then that if someone came to our border and did not have an invite, they should be barred from coming across our border?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I'd like to invite the nation of Cuba.
Okay. There we go. We'd have a lot of invites. But again, let me stay on that for a moment, right? The joke that some of you might not have heard is Michael Termott just said, well, what I would do is I'd invite the nation of Cuba. But if I understand correctly, Dr. Rechtenwald, if that were to happen, if any Cuban national did something bad, Mr. Termott would be responsible for what that person did. Is that correct?
Yes, and of course you're not going to be inviting people collectively. You invite individuals and families. That is an invitation to each person.
Okay.
And of course, it doesn't include bringing terrorists across the border.
But what if I invited a terrorist?
Well, then you'd be responsible for that person, but they'd be vetted at the port of entry.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Excellent. If I could move to Jacob Hornberger. Sir, same question. What would you either advocate for or expect the federal government to do?
If there is any issue that separates us in this race, this is one of them. This problem is caused by immigration socialism. I grew up on the border. I spent half my life on the border. I've seen the death toll from this system. It is central planning from the max. And notice that their message, all of them, presumes that they're going to fix this system. They're going to make it better. That's standard Republican message. Where is the constituency for that message? There is no constituency. That's why this party gets 1%, because every advocate of this socialist system and the police state that comes with it is going to vote for Trump. They're going to vote for DeSantis. Where is the constituency? There is only one solution to immigration socialism, and that is open borders. And that's the policy that this party has stood for 50 years. And when we started to move in the Republican direction of immigration controls and thinking that we're going to fix it, we're going to solve it, we're going to streamline it, we're going to make it easier, that was when this party started going down. That's one of the reasons for this 1%, chronic 1% that we get. The only solution to this is the one that's consistent with moral principles, the principles of life, of liberty, of the pursuit of happiness, and that is open borders, free movements of goods, services, and people across borders, the same way we have here domestically. And that's the only message that can break out and garner a large number of votes. I ran for U.S. Senate in Virginia 20 years ago, where the policy of open borders, abolished Social Security, abolished Medicare and Medicaid, and I got 7% of the statewide vote. Not 0.07, 7%, because freedom is a winning issue.
So let me follow up with that if I could. So what you're saying is you would say, federal government, do nothing. Just walk away from the border, do nothing, whatever happens, happens.
More. Dismantle the Border Patrol, dismantle the Immigration Service, dismantle every single control in the free movements of goods, services, and people across borders. It's the only solution to the problem that we have. There's no other solution.
Thank you. I think that was clear. All right, that's our first question. I think we got everybody. Move on to our second question. We're going to start this one with Mr. Lars Mapstead. Inflation. Inflation is obviously affecting every household in America. Some really bad. Some would say that it's crushing poor communities worse. What actions should be taken to help fix this problem, particularly for American families?
End the Fed. No, seriously. You know, the longer I've been running for president, the more I've realized that, thank you, Mike, the more I've realized that the Federal Reserve is a toxic organization that is robbing the American people. It has stolen $34 trillion from the American people. It's robbed them of their standard of living. And the Congress has given them the authority to do this, and it's time to end this practice. We have built-in robbery in America. The inflation is built in. We're talking about inflation now because it got out of control. It got above 2 or 3%, but we have 2 or 3% inflation as a mandate from the Federal Reserve. That means every 30 or so years, your dollars fall in half. Your value falls in half. And we've got to stop this theft because this is another form of taxation. And I hate taxation. Abolish the IRS. And this is another form of that. And we need to get rid of these corrupt systems. Essentially, the government printed too much money during COVID, handed it out to people and to, in large part, to giant corporations who helicopter dropped that money onto goods that didn't exist because we had supply chain issues. And this drove up the prices. It's basic economics. This isn't really hard, but somehow the inflation was transitory. It wasn't really happening. Oh, it's kind of a problem. Oh, crap. So, you know, the government doesn't know what they're doing. They don't even have control over this. It's time to get rid of the Federal Reserve and end it for good. Thanks.
Okay, so let me ask that question. Are you telling me that the old day one that we hear all the time, day one, I just go, you guys are gone, it's over, abolish? Or is there something else clearer when it comes to this?
If I could wave a magic wand, that'd be great. Sure. But clearly, as a Libertarian candidate, we're going to be the president of no mostly. And so we're going to be vetoing a lot of stuff that tries to get pushed through. So I don't think that there's an easy way to end the Fed on day one. But what I can do is I can nominate Ron Paul as the last chair of the Federal Reserve and finish the job that he started. Thanks.
Well, let me touch one more piece if I could. Yes, happy for that. Is that going to directly affect American families?
If we can get the Federal Reserve to stop this mandate of 2% inflation that they're always trying to target, and we let the market do its job, then we will end this inflation, we'll end the theft of the regular American people. Look, inflation hurts the average worker more than it hurts the bankers and the corporations.
Thank you. Excellent. Let me talk to Mr. Tremont. Same question. What action should be taken to help specifically the American family?
That was such a good answer. I don't know whether to cry or just start where Lars left off. He is exactly right. And let me not even try to contradict any of that, but just build on top of what he said. We have had an inflation problem in the United States for generations. Indeed, the Federal Reserve System has proven over the past 100 years, notwithstanding good intentions and lots of smart people, hardworking people, notwithstanding all that, it has proven over the last 100 years that it's simply unable to fulfill the mandate that it was given. And that mandate is to control inflation, give us a sound hard money, and to lean against the boom-bust cycle, and it has proven completely incapable of doing so. What we need to do is replace the Federal Reserve governors one at a time with individuals, including Ron Paul, that's a good idea, who believe in a rules-based system. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go all the way back to the gold standard, not that there's anything wrong with that. But it does mean that you have to replace the system we have now, which is locking a dozen people into a room every 6 weeks and asking what kind of mood swing they're having. That's no way to run monetary policy. I think that we all have a general sense of that. And I think the American people are ready for a message of institutional level, fundamental change in the United States as far as how we run our government. Whether it's been a Republican in power or a Democrat in power for generations, it hasn't really seemed to matter to the Fed, has it? I've spent a lot of time working with the Federal Reserve System. I have every respect for their efforts. But the truth of the matter is that they cannot get the job done. We need to end the Federal Reserve System, and that's why I have a plan to do it.
So let me ask you about that plan. You said you're going to replace the governors one at a time.
Yeah.
Is this, one a day for 5 days? Is this, the next 12 months? How long does that process work?
It takes a couple of years because you have to wait for their terms. You're not allowed to send them nasty mail suggesting, I can't predict the future, but your health might be better if you stepped aside. And trust me, we've talked about it. That's Plan B. Okay. But Plan A is you have to wait for each of their terms to expire and then replace them with libertarian-minded people. It's the same idea behind getting rid of other agencies in the government. You have to replace their leadership, winnow down their ability to spend their money, and once their political power is reduced, then you can move legislation against them.
So again, I'm going to say the same pushback I gave Lars, which is, if that's going to take a year or years, how does it affect the American family coming up now?
The signal that you would send right away is that that's the goal that you have. By the White House signaling immediately that we are going to be moving toward a rules-based system and away from a discretionary monetary policy, you're going to tell the markets that inflation is about to diminish significantly. And once you send that signal, you will see that the bond market will rally and the stock market as well. Investors will be able to start making better decisions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I want to now go to our internet participant, if I could. Mr. Rechtenwald, sir, same question.
Well, of course, inflation is caused by the Federal Reserve, but they do more than cause inflation. They also, their pumping of money into the economy, it depends upon where they put it. The people that get it first benefit, while those who get it later or not at all are harmed. So this is called the Cantillon effect, and this has been a major function of the Fed. I don't have any respect for the Fed. I think they're criminals. I think they're counterfeiters, and I think they should be abolished. But in the meanwhile, since it will take a congressional act to get rid of the Fed, we need to practice the free market in our lives with currencies, with competitive currencies, alternative parallel currencies right now. This erodes the Fed's power because it dilutes its power as a monopoly over money.
Excellent. So let me ask you then: Are you saying then that you would somehow say the federal government would then accept different currencies, or the federal government would not punish people for using currencies? Please help me to understand how this multiple currency piece would work.
Well, of course, we'd like to abolish the legal tender laws altogether. But in the meanwhile, we need to operate in a parallel economic system. And that means using Bitcoin, gold, silver, etc. I'm not going to adjudicate the various alternative currencies. But I will say this, that we need to have a free market in currencies. Of course, we would like the government to actually condone this, but we can't wait for them because they'll kill us in the meanwhile. We need to have these parallel currencies in operation now.
So then the last piece is, how does parallel currencies help the American family soon, in the next couple of months?
Well, since their dollar is becoming more and more worthless by the day, now it is down to the 1913 worth of 1 penny. This is a way to stave off the effects of inflation, obviously, because these currencies are not treated the way that the Fed treats the dollar, by pumping more of it into the economy, giving it to the right people at the beginning, and then making everybody else's lives utterly miserable given the inflation rate and the high time preference that it produces in the culture, which is also a disaster.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me head over to Mr. Jacob Hornberger. Same question. What would you, what action should be taken to help specifically the American family?
Our job as libertarians is to lead America to freedom. And we're not going to do that with advocating reform in any of these welfare state central planning agencies. Now, this "and the Fed" has become a trite, old phrase that Ron Paul did 10 years ago. It's not sufficient. This is a debate. I'm going to take Mike Tremont to task on his position here. He didn't tell you that what he calls for is a system that carries forward America's paper money system with a fixed inflation rate of 3 to 4%. Where's the constituency for that kind of message? That is not consistent with the Constitution, which Mike supports. The Constitution calls for gold and silver coins, not paper money. It was Franklin Roosevelt that nationalized gold and made paper money the official money standard as part of his famous New Deal campaign, which Mike has named his policy after, the Gold New Deal. We have to go further than this, further than reform. Abolish the Federal Reserve, get rid of legal tender laws, totally, get government totally out of the money business. This is what Hayek called for, the denationalization of money, the total separation of money in the state. That's the message of this party. That's where we should be leading America, because our job is to lead America to freedom, not some warmed over, better monetary system, immigration system, Social Security system. Our job is to lead America to liberty.
So let me be clear on this one then. You're also saying, if I understand, the government should not even print any money at all.
Absolutely. The government has no business in the money business at all.
So
it should be totally free market.
How does the government collect revenue?
It denominates, if we're going to have taxation, which
it may not be taxation. It could be anything else. But when the government collects revenue, how will it collect revenue and how will it pay any employees or laborers that it uses?
It labels what it needs in terms of currency that it's going to collect. So if it says you have to pay, let's say, your taxes, which I oppose, in American Express banknotes, then that's the money that they're collected in. If they say gold coins, then it's gold coins. But in the meantime, everybody's transacting in a free market monetary system. The government's simply labeling the particular Bitcoin or gold coin or whatever it is using for that purpose.
Okay, and let me ask the same question. How does that system help the American family, meaning soon? How does the American family get better with that system?
Because you have sound money. Sound money is one of the principal foundations of a prospering, growing economy. We had sound money in this country with gold coins and silver coins for over 100 years. It's one of the principal causes for the tremendous increase in the standard of living of the American people, especially from around 1890 to the time the Federal Reserve was established in 1913.
Thank you. And Mike, you were mentioned specifically. Do you want to take 30 seconds to rebut?
It depends.
Okay.
Is my microphone on? It depends. What was said about my plan was 100% dishonest. Does that mean that I need to spend one of my cards?
No.
Okay. In that case, sure. Obviously, the Gold New Deal is our plan to reimagine a relationship between us and the federal government, because we believe that the New Deal of Franklin and Roosevelt completely screwed it up. And so we are calling for revamping that deal completely. You can read about it at goldnewdeal.org. The other thing that was said that is not just dishonest, but to be honest, really dopey dishonest. I am calling for a zero inflation rate by completely changing monetary policy in the United States. I have a plan to eliminate the Federal Reserve System and replace it with a rules-based system that would lead to zero inflation with a very low rate of annual increase in the money base to match the rate at which our economy expands. Zero inflation.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything to that, Mr. Hornberger?
Yeah, I do.
Please, go ahead, 30 seconds.
Yeah. His plan specifically said that he's going to have an inflation rate equal to the growth rate. You can go look on it, on his website. Therefore, if the growth rate is 3 to 4%, you're going to have an inflation rate of 3 to 4%.
Thank you. 15 seconds if you want to reply to that, Michael.
Not only does the website not say that, it would be a stupid thing to say. Jacob, just because you're bad at math doesn't mean you get to mischaracterize someone else's plan. The idea is to allow the money base to increase by 1 or 2% a year to match the growth rate of the real underlying economy, resulting in an inflation rate of zero.
Okay, I want to move on, if I could, now to Chase. Chase, it's been a lot. There's a lot of stuff's happened before now. Should I repeat the question? I mean, it's a tough one, but yes, if you would. Inflation, big deal all over America, especially American households. Some people would say it hits the poorest families the worst. What action should be taken to help that situation, remedy this, and of course to focus on helping American families?
So yes, we want to end the Fed, we want to change monetary policy, but what can we do today? What can we ask that Congress give to a president today that's going to help American families? A balanced budget is the first thing we can do because that prevents us from printing trillions of dollars out of thin air. If we can balance the budget, you will slow inflation. And by the way, the last time we had a balanced budget in this country, we had the largest growth of the middle class in our country's history. I don't think those two things are unrelated. And you're correct that this hits poor people more. Why does our monetary policy affect poor people more? Because when they generate dollars out of thin air, who do they give that money to? They give that money to banks, and then banks loan it to you with interest. They don't get any, they're not paying any interest on that. You're paying the interest on that money. So it affects the average individual far more in individual families. You are correct there. And having a balanced budget can start reducing the amount of money that we're printing out of thin air. But yes, we absolutely want to change our monetary policy. We absolutely want to fight for alternative currencies like Bitcoin and others. We absolutely want to support auditing the Fed. At least, at the very least, can we get ourselves where our Congress can audit the Fed? That was the first thing that Ron Paul wanted to fight for before he even could end it, right? But at the very end, we absolutely must end the Fed. And we cannot wait, like Argentina did, to elect a president who's going to wait till we have 140% inflation to get it done. We need to do it right here, right now, and we need to be exactly like Malay says, afuera, get rid of it, out of there. And that's what we need to be fighting for, absolutely.
So let me then say the same thing. You decide to do the balanced budget. I love it. How does the balanced budget affect an American family, in the near future?
Well, when you balance the budget, what you're doing is so every year right now when we're printing trillions of dollars out of thin air because we run budget deficits and the Treasury prints money to make up for that. And so when we do that, we devalue every dollar. It's like a slice of pie. We're cutting the slices even smaller. So when we stop overspending, when we stop this deficit spending and we get our economy under control, when we start balancing the budget, we stop printing those trillions of dollars out of thin air, and it can actually start reducing the rate of inflation in real time.
Okay, I got it. There were a lot of back and forth here between Mr. Termott and Mr. Hornberger. So, Lars, I want to give you 30 seconds. Do you want to say anything, add in any way?
Yeah. Look, the American people are suffering, and they're suffering because the government is not doing its job, and it's getting in the way. People are having a hard time putting food on their table, putting gas in their car, paying for their medical care, paying for their kids' education, their clothes. We've got to end this because it's the regular people that are suffering, and every time we have a new bank bailout or a new giant printing of money, it just goes to the banks and then the corporations, and it never trickles down to the regular people, and that's what I'm here for.
Excellent, thank you. I also want to go to our internet celebrity we have here, if we could. Also, there was a lot of back and forth between two candidates. Mr. Rectenwald, do you want to take 30 seconds and say something, add something?
Yes, I want to say that, of course, we need a free market in currencies and not a state currency. So that's why I argue that we need parallel economic currencies right now, and that we can stave off the effects of the Fed and its inflationary and discretionary and utterly biased approach, and we can do that now.
Thank you. And just to wrap things up, You want to give 30 seconds?
I just wanted to say one thing real quick. We need a reminder, and 2008 was a great reminder of this, the fact that we live supposedly in a capitalist system, but when big banks fail, it's socialism. They bail the banks out. The government's happy to help out the large financial firms, and it's the average individual who ends up picking up the losses. And so we need to get back to a more free market system. When a bank is too big and it fails, it needs to fail. It needs to fall by the wayside. Its inventory needs to be liquidated to other people to buy, and that's how the free market system is supposed to work. And because we don't have that, we have this continued boom and bust cycle that is continuing to affect American families far more than it's affecting the giant corporate interests who have bought and paid for our Congress.
Excellent. There we go. Nice way to wrap up that question. That was 2 questions down. We have the third one I'm going to start, and this one's going to start with Mr. Michael Termott. Again, 90 seconds. The current Israel-Palestine conflict. Yes. As commander-in-chief or even as a candidate, what actions would you either take and or advocate for regarding this conflict?
If we have learned anything over the past couple of months, it is that we do not have influence over the actors in the Middle East. And I realize that that comes as a great deal of disappointment to many of us in the room. This particular conflict is personal. It feels more personal. It feels more difficult than the other conflicts we have around the world. We have made it our policy in the United States to give billions of dollars a year to the government of Israel, to give billions of dollars a year collectively to the other actors in the area, the governments of Egypt and Jordan. We no longer give money to the Lebanese government, but we did until recently. The PLA, Hamas, Hezbollah, and we have proven that we have absolutely no influence over these actors whatsoever. We need to end our policy of providing foreign aid because it is what attaches us to the foreign military decisions of the actors. We become liable for them, we become responsible, we need to answer for them. This is not a position that the United States government should be in. No matter what direction that we go, we end up ultimately making choices that do not reflect, therefore, the values of the American people. And we need to get out of trying to manipulate people in the Middle East and around the world. I also believe that we need to get out of trying to call the shots in the South China Sea. We need to get out of the idea of calling the shots in Europe. We need to exit NATO. We need to exit providing resources to Ukraine. This is the style of policy we need to pursue.
So if I understand right, Michael, what you'd be advocating in this specific case is stop sending them anything and just walk away? Would that be, am I paraphrasing you correctly or no?
Stop sending them money, absolutely. And that doesn't mean that the markets can't function correctly. I wouldn't use the phrase walk away in the sense that the United States government can still be there to play a role in brokering peace negotiations, treaties. We still want to play a major role around the world in terms of economic development, in terms of fostering free trade. There's a lot of good that we can provide both in the private sector and through the government.
Excellent, thank you. I want to head over to the internet and head over to Dr. Rechtenwald. Same question in this current Israel-Palestine conflict. As either candidate or commander-in-chief, what actions would you take or advocate for?
I've been very explicit about this conflict. We're not only sending Israel $3.8 billion per year in military aid, we are also now sending them arms on a daily basis, and we have made the cachet that exists in Israel. We've given them unfettered access to it with no qualifications whatsoever. We are actually aiding and abetting Israel to utterly destroy a whole people. 2.3 million people, 1.3 million of which are utterly displaced, 20,000 killed, another who knows how many injured. It is a disaster, and we're paying for it. Do we have influence across the world? You better believe it. But this influence is utterly negative. This has got to stop. We must stop all funding of foreign wars, particularly, but pull all funds from all nations altogether, inclusive of Israel. It is no special partner in any sense, and likewise does not deserve a total green light with no conditions to use our weapons to kill people.
So let me, if I could, oh, you want to clap for that? Go ahead, please. Someone clap? It's fine. Whatever. Yes. Oops. So while we have an audience, if you want to clap, you can. So let me ask you a more specific question then. Are you saying, from your emotion I felt, so if I'm wrong, please correct me, Are you saying that if we support anybody, we should be supporting the people who are being oppressed in this case? You would say the Palestinians, if I understand where you're standing from. What I heard you were saying Israel is doing, we should stop that and support the Palestinians, or am I mischaracterizing you?
No, I didn't say we should support the Palestinians. We shouldn't support anybody.
Nobody.
But we certainly shouldn't support people undertaking these kinds of actions, killing civilians on a daily basis. So I say stop all funding, all military aid immediately.
Okay, thank you. Let me move over to Mr. Hornberger, if I could. Same question.
John Quincy Adams, in his 4th of July address, 1821 to Congress, really expressed the beauty of American foreign policy. He said, you know, a lot of bad things happen in the world. You know, conflicts, tyrannies, starvations, wars, but it would never be the role of the U.S. government to go abroad and slay those monsters. His speech is called In Search of Monsters to Destroy, and I highly recommend reading it. That the U.S. government just needs to stay out completely. Stop all foreign aid, stop all foreign interventions, close all the military bases, but do more than that. And that is dismantle the whole national security state form of governmental structure and restore a limited government republic on which our nation was founded. That's the root of the problem here, is the national security state. If we have that kind of policy, then individuals can go free. You can donate your own money to the Palestinians or to Israel or to Ukraine or to Russia, whoever you want to donate your money to. Now we're talking about a free society. But they also went further than that. They said, if you're suffering overseas from something like this, we're going to have open borders in this country where you're free to come. In fact, it's kind of ironic that there are people in this race that say, well, we really favor the Palestinians, but we got to keep the borders closed to them. And that was what happened during World War II or in the 1930s when Franklin Roosevelt used the Ellis Island type of immigration system to keep German Jews from escaping Germany when Hitler was willing to release them. That's what we need to restore in this country, our sound founding principles of open borders, a limited government republic, and a non-interventionist foreign policy. That's the way we lead America out of this morass.
So let me then give a push to you, if I could. If you had that system, wouldn't you literally have people who have relatives in the Middle East, who care about what happens over there? Wouldn't you literally have privatized companies sending troops to fight on one side or the other? Wouldn't you have people buying weaponry to send to other individuals, groups who would get together and say, well, since America no longer has this system, I'm going to gather my people and go over there and fight. And how would we handle that?
It'd be fantastic.
Good.
That's what freedom and individual responsibility is all about. It's happened in the Spanish Civil War, where Americans went over there. It happened in this war with Ukraine and Russia, where Americans go over there, take responsibility, and fight on the side of Ukraine. That's what freedom and responsibility are all about.
So then would the American government at that point have any responsibility for POWs or anything like that?
No, of course not.
Okay.
You go over there, you take your chances. You take responsibility for your actions.
Understood. Thank you. Chase, same question.
Yeah, so first I'm going to echo Jacob and actually agree with that point. You know, you can fight all you want over in Ukraine or in Israel, anyone you want. Just don't ask that my money, my tax money be taken in my pocket to do it. It's your right to go fight over there if you want to. But in regards to Israel, you know, post 9/11, I wish someone had come to us as an ally and said, you know what, this policy of war in the Middle East over the next 20 years is not going to make the world more stable. It's not going to make the country more safe. It's actually going to destabilize things and ruin the United States, the reflection of what the United States looks like around the world. I wish one of our allies had done that. We need to be doing the same thing to Israel. We need to be telling them that these airstrikes that they're doing, killing thousands and thousands of innocent people, is not the way to root out Hamas. It's not the way to end terrorism in Israel, and it's not going to make Israel more safe. And if we want to say that we're an ally to Israel, that's what we need to be doing, not giving them more weapons to fight the wars. And so I, again, would join with the other libertarians here on this stage to say that in the foreign aid, in the military aid, and let countries handle themselves as they want to, right? We don't have to be the world's policeman. It's not our job. Our job is to protect the sovereignty of the United States. That's what our military should be doing. So we should be removing the military footprint from every continent that isn't North America. This is just the premise of what we're supposed to be doing with the military, is defending ourselves, not attacking other people around the world. And I think we need to be able to be friendly enough to Israel to say to them, this policy that you're doing with Gaza is not correct. It will create further instability, more hatred of Israel, more terrorism, more violence. And if we want to be an ally to them, we have to say, you cannot do this. And also, we cannot hold the precondition for what meetings happen between the two. That has to happen between Israel and Palestine. And lastly, I would say this.
Let me push back if I could.
Sure.
If we to do this, you are saying, though, that you still want to be allies and have allies. So if we have allies, won't we still be somehow brought into some form of war if we're going to have allies in this? In the case of what I think the others were saying, they were like, just get out totally.
So the term ally maybe is a misnomer.
He's like out.
How about international neighbor? Somebody who else, another nation in the world where we can talk to them and have diplomacy and say, hey, maybe not the best advice to do this, but no, we should not be tying ourselves to any nation, Israel or any others, with precondition, with the ability to say that they can determine when we go to war. That has to end, and that includes NATO and other things. We need to remove ourselves from these foreign entanglements. Our first president said this. It's from the very beginning. This is something that we've been going against for 250 years, and we need to get back to more sensible foreign policy.
Excellent. Thank you. Please, go ahead. So we have an audience. Of course. Last but not least, Mr. Lars Mapstead, same question.
Thank you. Does this conflict make anybody here feel sad? It makes me feel sad. I have 2 daughters, and I think to myself, what if my daughters were in this situation where they were shot and killed? What if they, on either side? I want to put money towards peace. And the way that I believe that we achieve peace in the world is we take care of the people of the world. Not because we take from people and give to other people, but because we lift everybody up economically. We need to push forward more economic plans that help other countries, because people don't go to war when they're fed. People don't go to war when they have a house over their head. People go to war when they feel desperate and they do desperate things. And we need to end this. One of the things that I'm working on is an energy race. And I know this doesn't have much to do with this, but it does. Because what I want to do is I want to create extremely cheap energy for the world. I would like to see fusion in my lifetime, which essentially is as big as discovery of fire. It's endless free energy for everybody. And this creates cheap food, cheap transportation, cheap housing, cheap everything. And no war has been really won at the end of a gun. Usually, like the Berlin Wall fell because of economics, not because of a gun. And we need to economically lift people up so that we can stop this. Look, America cannot police Chicago or Detroit or Baltimore. How can we police the rest of the world?
So, please, yes. Let me push back on this. If we are able to create this cheap energy, how do we share this with the world? Are you saying we're going to be donating it, giving it somehow? How are we going to help the rest of the world if we have this great energy?
Yeah. So when we discovered the nuclear bomb, it was meant specifically for killing people. And then they found out that it could be used to create energy. And one of our presidents, I can't remember off the top of my head, had an energy policy where he wanted to share the technology with the rest of the world so everybody could have cheap energy. If we can get fusion, which a lot of countries are working on right now, if we can get that and we share it with everybody, that's going to lift everybody up to such a level that we've never imagined before. I literally mean that it's like discovering fire all over again.
Thank you.
Can I jump in here, Larry?
Please, of course.
Okay. I mean, I'm just astounded right now because I'm hearing effectively Lars saying that we need to have social welfare programs for the entire planet. So what would that cause? Would cause an immense growth of the state and the further oppression of the citizens within the state. We are not in the business of spreading welfarism across the planet. That's an outrage for a libertarian. And, we're not in the business. Who are we that we're talking about giving free that, free this? That's called the state. What we need is companies doing what they will, not the state.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you want to go ahead and respond, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not talking about the state giving it away. Technology is once you develop technology, it's pretty easy to hand that idea off to somebody else to implement for themselves. It's not giving away anything. It's not taxing from anybody. It's the giving of ideas. Imagine if we discovered fire and then said, we're not going to share fire with the rest of the planet. Of course we are, and it's going to make everybody better, and it didn't cost us anything to share that knowledge with people, to lift people up. And that's why I think the solution is a good one, because it doesn't cost us anything, and it solves a lot of problems.
I have to jump back in, Larry, if I can.
Michael, go ahead, please.
Just who is this we sharing things? We're supposed to be libertarians who believe in the private enterprise, the private market, private ownership of production. If some company wants to share something, that's their perfect right. But who's going to compel this sharing? The state. Who else? So we're not in the business of telling people to share or not share. That's up to them. This is called free enterprise.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm not saying that the government is going to do it. What I'm saying is I want to promote the position that we should be moving towards discovering fusion so that we can lift all people up. And that is free enterprise. That is other countries are doing it right now.
Thank you, Lars. Unless you want to use 30 seconds.
No,
do you want to use 30 seconds?
No, you're good.
Okay. And 15 more seconds if you want to respond to that, Michael.
Well, I just don't see
No, I
who's
meant
doing
Mr.
this.
Rectenwald. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, I understand encouraging. You could be the cheerleader of anything you want, but it's not. We got to make sure this doesn't come down to compunction, to compelling companies to do this, that, or the other thing. That's entirely their business.
Thank you so much. Excellent. All right. That was a good one, wasn't it? That was good, wasn't it? Yeah, we're doing it. There we go. Now we're rocking and rolling. Does anyone else want to use their orange card to put some more in? Awesome. We move on to our. No. He answered a different question.
Oh, I see.
Yes, he answered a different question.
Out of nowhere.
That is correct.
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, you can pull something out of nowhere. Of course.
I mean,
yes,
as long
please,
as
go
now
ahead.
I understand that Lars just pulled this out of his ear, I think that's terrific.
Go ahead, please.
And that therefore it may not come up otherwise. Look, Lars is absolutely right on this. We need to be moving toward fusion. It is equivalent to inventing fire. The reason it's a public policy issue, and I'm sorry if certain people on this dais don't quite understand this, the reason it's a public policy issue is not because we're trying to socialize, it's because we're trying to get the government out of the way of it. The reason that we don't have nuclear fission and consequently, in the long run, fusion moving ahead is because the federal government has made it very difficult to get permits. What we need to do is to put this in the hands of the states and allow them to make rules for themselves
Thank you,
as
Michael.
to what technologies they're going to allow investment in.
Unless you want another 30.
No, it's all right.
Thank you. Good. Excellent. All right, good. So I appreciate that. We are now going to move on to question number 4, and that will begin with Mr. Rectenwald. As president or as a candidate, it will be very difficult to get libertarian changes. What would you advocate for, or how would you try to get either bipartisan, nonpartisan, tripartisan support to enact anything that you want to enact, either as a president or as a candidate?
Well, first of all, I'm not running as a white knight who will roll into D.C. and top down change the system. This is an utterly delusional idea that should be banished from our thoughts.
Well, just to be clear, Mr. Rectenwald, I did say or as a candidate. Either one.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is that what we need to encourage is taking control of our offices at the local level, running for city council, school board, sheriff, mayor, chief of police, whatever. The point is, we're not going to beat this system from the top down. We have to dismantle it from the ground up. I think I'm the only grassroots candidate here that's talking about putting people into human action themselves, not sitting around waiting for some presidential candidate like RFK Jr. going into D.C. and I'm going to wave a magic wand and fix everything. I'm sorry to tell you, we have to have people do this themselves.
Excellent. Thank you. Please. So if I understand what you're saying, Mr. Rectenwald, you're saying the biggest aspect that you would do is you would be supporting people at the local level and having them have a bottom-up response. Did I say that correctly?
That's correct. I'm advocating a decentralized revolution where we take power from the federal government, wrest it away from them, invest it in the people at the local level, using the power of nullification, the 10th Amendment, and getting rid of the state, in order to operate, must drive its agenda into the social fabric at the local level. That's where we can resist it. That's where we can stop it.
Excellent.
And we can do this with parallel currencies, parallel economic structure, parallel political structures. We need to get more libertarian-minded people into office.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If I can move on to Mr. Homberger, same question, please. As either a candidate or as a president, how could you get things done, either bipartisan, nonpartisan, or some other way?
What I keep emphasizing in this race, and I'm going to emphasize all the way to May, is that it is imperative that the presidential candidate of this party emphasize the pure, genuine principles on which this party was founded. Mike Rechtenwald says he wants to get people elected to school boards. He's already made that a campaign issue. He and his campaign manager, Michael High, said, we're going to take over the school boards of America. Why? To show America that libertarians can run socialism better than Democrats and Republicans. Because public schooling is your classic socialist program at the state level. Every one of my opponents here favors school vouchers, which are nothing but a socialist reform measure that takes money from one group of people through taxation and gives it to another group of people. Is it popular? Absolutely, in the Republican Party, but it has been a disaster for this party. When Mike Tremont took this message to the voters in the 20th Congressional District, he got less than 1% of the vote. When Chase Oliver took this message to the voters of Georgia, he got 2% of the vote. When Joe Jorgensen took the message 3 years ago, 1% of the vote. We need to restore the principles on which this party was founded, which do not violate the libertarian non-aggression principle, which school vouchers do, and trying to take control over public schooling. And we got to raise people's vision to what liberty is, and that's the separation of school and state, the end of all government involvement in education, and that's the only message that a Libertarian Party presidential candidate should be making with respect to whether there should be reform or liberty.
Let me give you a little bit of pushback about it. Please, go ahead. Yes, please. You're going to have to get Americans to agree with that in somehow, right? That this question is based upon how do you make that thing happen, right? So if we want to get Americans to do what you're saying, either we've got to have something that's nonpartisan or bipartisan, or we've got to do grassroots or something. How do we get people to enact that? How do we get people to abandon the school system, as you say?
You see, the strategy has always been, for the last 20 years, not to target Democrats, because Democrats are never going to vote for a voucher proponent, but to target Republicans. You're never going to convince Republicans to come with our genuine principles. Our job is not to worry about Republicans or Democrats, to find our disgruntled voters, to find the people that support, that love our principles. When I ran for Senate, as I told you, I didn't worry about Republicans. I didn't worry about Democrats. But there were 7% of the electorate that said, we like that message. And that's what we got to do. We got to find the people that love our principles. And they're out there. But they're not going to vote for reform. And that's why we get the 1%.
Thank you. All right. Chase, same question, right? How do we move this forward? What do we have to do to make this happen?
Yeah, so this is really the most important question that a libertarian candidate for president is going to face. How are you going to run, and how are you going to get more support? How are you going to grow our message or our movement? I want to do this by trying to speak.
I want to be clear. I didn't ask to grow the movement. I meant to make changes.
You're right. So to make changes.
Yes.
Regardless, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to be speaking our principles in a way that is attractive and attracts those voters who are disgruntled with the two-party system. 68% of voters say they're dissatisfied with the two parties and they want a third party out there. So what can we provide them? We have to have a candidate that can speak their language, speak to them where they're at, while also maintaining our North Star of our principles and ideals. We need to be able to do both of those things at the same time. I would also say that we need to start actively investing our party in the younger generation so that we can grow our movement for the next generation, because Gen Z is going to be the highest voter bloc in 15 years. If we don't start investing in them now, they're going to start voting within the two-party system, and it's way harder to pull them out of the two-party system if they've already voted within it. So we need to be speaking our principles in a way that is attractive to the voters and in a way that makes sense to them, reach to them where they are. That's something that I've tried to do when I've run for office in the past. By the way, I did get 2% in my Senate race. In doing so, I made national news and attention from the Libertarian Party, and I brought the idea of ranked choice voting up from 5% support in the state to almost 40% support in the state. So you can have real impact if you run a real principled race, even in the most expensive Senate race in United States history. Trust me, I know this for a fact. And I want to run all over the country to give voters something to feel good about. Because right now they have a false impression, if they have any impression of libertarians. They think we're selfish, that we only care about ourselves, and we need to be able to communicate that the value of libertarianism is an empathic value. It says that each and every person can make their own destiny, their own life, if we just promise that we try not to have force, fraud, and coercion with one another. If we live in peace, we live free. And that needs to be the message we push forward.
Let me push back a little bit on this one. You talked about the youth, right? And what everyone always says, and maybe I'm wrong here, I'm happy to be open. I'm open to being wrong here, but everyone will say it's not worth going to the youth. The youth, they don't vote, right? The people who voted are people over 60. These youngsters, they don't vote. Is this going to be the right answer if the people we may be getting our message to don't actually vote?
So 2 data points that would fight back against that. First and foremost, it's harder to pull people who are over 60 out of the two-party system. They're already set in their ways. They've been voting the same way for decades. It's much harder to pull them out than a young person. Secondly, Gen Z is voting in higher numbers in this at the same time that millennials were in a much higher rate. So millennials, like myself, weren't voting as much as Gen Zers are. They want to vote for something. We want to give them something to vote for. I'm going to use 30 seconds here. Last thing that we need to do is we need to be able to put our message in a way that resonates with people. Raise your hand in here if you've read Mises Liberalism. 3 people. Raise your hand, 4 or 5. Raise your hand if you've watched Star Wars. That is about a group of ragtag freedom fighters fighting back against a status apparatus. We need to be able to communicate our message in a way that resonates with people. And there's lots of ways to do that. But one way is not doing it is by boring them to death. We have to be energetic, we have to be enthusiastic, and we have to be willing to get out there where the voters are and reach them where they are, which is what I've been doing all over the country.
Thank you. Lars Mabstead, same question.
Thank you. The system is rigged. Currently, there is no way for an independent or third party to win the presidency of the United States because there is no path to 270 electoral votes due to winner-take-all states and the fact that our vote doesn't actually count in most of the states that we vote in. There is only one way that a libertarian could take the presidency, and that is to deny both Trump and Biden the 270 needed and send it to the House of Representatives, where the House of Representatives could pick the first president, libertarian president of our lifetime. Look, we can't affect change at the top if we don't win. And I agree that we need to be affecting change at the local and state levels, absolutely. But we need everybody to step up to the plate and run, which I'm not seeing as I travel from state to state at these conventions. If I magically am elected president of the United States, the first thing that I want to do, which we all share in this room, is to reduce the state. And I would start with a thing called the Plum Book. And it's a list of 7,000 positions that the president gets to appoint. I would not appoint any of those positions. I would let the Congress decide if they like those positions, and they could reappoint those positions if they like, but I would not be appointing them. That's how I would start reducing the state. I would be the president of no. I would veto everything that I didn't approve of, and they would have to work with me in order to get by those things, including balancing the budget and that sort of thing. If the Congress can't do their job, then we'll make them do it. Thanks.
So if I understood you, you had 2 things. One as a candidate and one as president. As president, you simply said, you're not doing anything. That's just going to, and people are going to figure it out as you just tell people, no, we're not bringing people aboard. We're not appointing people, and that's going to be in a cut government, and then things are going to change. Did I paraphrase that correctly?
Yes.
And then as a candidate, the goal is to basically shake things up so that nobody wins. Almost kind of what Chase was saying, the idea that him stopping either from winning he was able to then make more change. You're saying this at a national level.
There's nothing that wakes up America better than complete chaos and screwing the system over. If we screw the system over, people are going to be like, what the hell did the libertarians do? They broke it. Hell yeah, we broke it. That's what we're here to do. We need to shake the system up. We're all asleep in America. We need to wake people up, and we do that by winning.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Mr. Tremont, same question. Would you like me to repeat it, or are you okay?
No, I got it. I got it, Larry. I've heard it enough times now. Look, Lars has got it exactly right. Our job is to disrupt the way American politics works, and we are building a campaign to do exactly that. We are running with a style of campaign and the style of messaging. Here's the object of the game. The object of the game is to create in the minds of American voters, donors, and media that there is a completely new choice available to you. Our job is not to find common ground with Republican and Democratic politicians, but to cleave a very hard edge against them. We will come right out of the box in June, not October, with big-time advertising at dedicated to the preposition that we are a new choice, cleaving a very hard edge, leaving no mistake. Our campaign is not going to be based on, let me see if I can get this right from 2016, we're socially liberal like Democrats and fiscally conservative like Republicans. If you hear me say something that dumb, you'll know aliens have sucked my brain out. The object of the game is to share our principles and do so in a way that reflects the fact that our values align with most Americans much better than the values of the Republican or Democratic Party establishment. That's the truth. We have to give Americans an opportunity to find us and to recognize in themselves the libertarian streak that is there. Remember, most Americans have a libertarian streak, but they can't spell libertarianism.
So, please go ahead. Let me give you a little pushback on that. I've heard that many times. Many Americans are libertarian, they didn't know, blah, blah. People want a choice, all those things.
Right.
But in so many cases, when we were able to get out there, people didn't make that choice. They still went back to their old ways of Democrat or Republican. How do we break that, right? This is almost habit forming, right? Like, oh, yeah, this Chamath guy seems smart. I like him, but, you know, I'm really a Democrat. Or, oh, I'm scared of the Republican or whatever. How do we break that habit?
Yeah, and they're not going to say exactly that. They'll say he's got a terrific wife, and you know we can put up with him. I get it. Look, I would give you some pushback on your pushback.
Please.
I don't think it's true that we've done a very good job in the past of giving people a really different choice.
Okay.
If you if you go out there and you say that we're like Republicans in this way and like Democrats in this other way, you're not creating a completely different choice. You're just telling people now you got two reasons to dislike us. To cram a quick story into my remaining time, when Gary Johnson said, what's Aleppo, right, and his campaign imploded, I want to make the argument that that's not the reason his campaign imploded. The reason his campaign imploded is because when he eventually made that mistake, and we all do, he had not given people a reason to hang on to him. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who says many more stupid things than that on a weekly basis, but people know why they love him and why they hate him.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Great. Guys, thank you for that. Thank you. Those were all the prepared questions. I'm now going to see if I can grab some from the internet. Oh, please, you want to say? Please go ahead, Chick. Of course, please.
How much time?
30 seconds, please.
Yeah, I want to comment on what Chase and Mike have said. Chase is absolutely right. He got more publicity in his race for U.S. Senate than I think any Libertarian Party presidential candidate in history. Most influential Libertarian American. I commend him for it. And he got in the debate. And Mike Tremont got in the debate. And these are two of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, in case you haven't noticed that. 98% rejection rate at the end of that process. 99% rejection rate. Why? If everybody's a libertarian, how come they have this huge rejection rate? It's not because it's personal, because they're likable guys. It's because of this Republican-light reform message that has become standard in our races. People are not going to vote for that. There's no constituency for that.
Thank you.
The only constituency is a message of principle.
Thank you. Excellent. Go ahead, please.
I would just argue that the reason why there was that disparity in votes is the fact that I was outfunded by 1,000 to 1 by my opponents. The fact that they spent $20 to $25 per vote, I spent 14 cents per vote, does show the funding disparity between us. But certainly they had much more chance to get out in front of the public than the Libertarian did with my one debate. So I would argue that there's definitely a financial reason why maybe I didn't get more than 2%.
Do you want to use 30 seconds or?
No, I'm
okay,
good for that.
Michael, do you want to bring up 15 seconds just to respond to that?
No, I want to support Chase here. He did get outspent. I got outspent in my race. And remember that when you spend all of your time explaining what libertarianism is, it's hard to get a message out there. I am not going to apologize for all the hours, days, weeks, months I spent in the Walmart parking lot trying to educate people. That is doing good work, right? But we need a presidential candidate to do the hard work at the top level so that down ballot candidates have a chance.
Go ahead, Lars, please, 30 seconds.
So the system is rigged. The reason we're getting 1% to 2% is because the system is rigged against us. We can't even get on the damn ballot. How are you going to win if you can't get on the ballot? How are you going to raise money if people don't expect that you can win? We have to show people that we can win, and then we start getting their money. If they don't believe we can win, why would they give us their money? The media doesn't want to pay any attention to us because we can't get any money because they've rigged the system against us. In order to unrig the system, we have to start chopping away at the unfair election process that we have, and that's what my Voters' Bill of Rights does. Is it delivers transparency and fairness and equality for all Americans to run for any campaign. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. I now want to open it up to the floor. Is there anyone on the floor who has a question? Please, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, if I could stand up, I myself ran for Congress many times.
I will repeat it.
I empathize with your plight, but I have a unique thought for all of you. And
Unique thought?
I just thought of in the last 10 seconds.
Please, go ahead.
Say you get to go to Washington, D.C. Say you get to meet those guys on K Street that fund the special interest. How would you sell them that your campaign would add more economic stability such that they should throw money at you?
Oh, I'm going to use that question, but modify it a little bit. For those of you who are online and haven't heard that, Dan's question was, if you actually get down to D.C., you have to deal with all those K Street consultants and all those people, how are you going to convince them that the money should go to you and should not go to other people against you? Let me start that if I could. That would start with Jacob. That's actually yours to start with first.
This is the hypothetical after you're elected?
No. This is before you're. This is if you get down there. The K Street people want to talk to you tomorrow. You head down there to talk to them. How do you get them to write those gazillions of dollars checks to supporting us, libertarians, and yourself, versus the system that's been there for them forever?
You don't. You don't seek money from those kind of people. This is where we have a fundamental disagreement that you can tell. They say it's a problem of money, not enough money. I challenge that from the word go. This is not a problem of too much money. Chase got millions of dollars of free advertising. Bloomberg, ABC, Washington Post, New York Times, millions of dollars of advertising. Still, at the end, 98% of and he got his message out. He can't say, if there's one libertarian who cannot say he didn't get his message out, it's Chase Oliver. He was in the debate with Raphael Warnock. He had half the time. But his message was, right there in debate, smaller government and lower taxes. That was his central message. Classic Republican mantra, popular in the Republican Party. Our problem is not insufficient money. It's a bad message. We get the message right, we pull the votes in. And what's that message? Our founding principles. The biggest mistake we made was not Gary Johnson in Aleppo. Our biggest mistake in this party was taking Republican principles, relabeling them as libertarian, and abandoning our core principles of liberty. But if we restore those principles and run a campaign based on those principles, we would have the most exciting campaign in LP history, and the LP would finally be a force to be reckoned with. I have no doubts that the 7% that voted for this message, not for me, because I'm nothing special, but when they voted 7% for open borders and get rid of public schooling and so forth, that can be doubled today with the right message.
Thank you. Chase, please, same question. You're getting invited down to K Street. All the big wigs are there with the millions of dollars. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I'm going to deny that invitation because here's the truth. These people are paying money to invest into our Congress, to buy and pay for our Congress. Why? Because they can control them. And I hate to say this, but you're not going to be able to control a libertarian president. We're going to fight for the principles of freedom, liberty, free markets, these ideas that K Street, they oppose because they want to support central planning. They want to support giving themselves tax breaks and subsidies and all these things for their industries. The best thing that I can offer people is I'm going to free the market. I'm going to reduce the subsidies to nothing. I'm going to reduce the giveaways to nothing. We're going to lower the overall cost and impact of government in our lives. And that will benefit millions of people. But it won't benefit lobbyists in Washington, D.C., because they're the people who buy and control our government as it exists. We need to reach out to the people and being asked for a grassroots support. This is how many of the people who get elected do so. Barack Obama, he did take lobbyists' money, but he also had the highest number of small number donors in the country because he spoke a message directly to them. Why did the lobbyists pay for that? Because they saw who the winning horse already was. We need to be doing that as libertarians, reaching out to the grassroots, to individual people. My support does not come certainly from PACs or any kind of money, and it never will. Right now, I am the candidate, I think, who has the most number of small dollar donors on the stage, and I'm going to continue to do that as I grow my donor network. But I'm going to do that by traveling across the country with the energy and enthusiasm to speak directly to the individual people about how freedom can help their lives, how freedom can help their families, how freedom can help them make better decisions for their kids on education, medical decisions, or anything else. And never will that be attractive to K Street lobbyists because they are concerned with control and centrally planning our economy, and libertarians reject it, and I will reject it every step of the way to be a real contrast between Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Thank you. Please, go ahead. Here's. Laura, same question. You get to meet the K Street guys. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think my answer is somewhat similar to Chase's, although I would still meet with them and listen to what they had to say. You know, there may be a common ground or a common interest that we could work together on. But in general, you know, I'm not for lobbyists. I feel like they corrupt the system as much as the Congress people. But let's face it, if Congress wasn't corruptible, the money wouldn't corrupt them. And so we need principled people in office. Fortunately for me, you know, I'm a business guy. I sold my business in 2007 for $500 million, and I have been self-funding my campaign. I've put $500,000 so far into my campaign, and I'm going to continue to do that. Money is going to be a problem during this election, and once the person is nominated, we still have to have a lot of money, and there's not a lot of money going around in the Libertarian Party right now. This is going to be a major factor. I am very good at spending money wisely and efficiently. I ran a big company, and I know how to look at budgets and spend the money wisely. So I won't be accepting their money, but I'll listen to what they have to say. And if they have something good to say that works with a libertarian message, I would be, you know, I would take their money. But other than that, you know, I'm just self-funding, and we're going to make it happen. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. Good. Mr. Jamot, same question.
Super, Dan. I think the essence of your question was how are we going to pitch people whose money we need. Yes, it is true that we're not going to K Street per se because it is the home of lobbyists. We're not actually going to make that trip. But having said that, there are people outside of our party and, parenthetically, people inside of our party who have real money and have money in the amounts that we need. We need to go from the 3 or 4 million that was raised in the last presidential cycle to something like 13 or 14 million in the next cycle. There's two things that you need to do differently in order to achieve that. One is, as I mentioned before, we do need a message that completely differentiates us from the other party so people understand that there's something that you can give your money to other than the Republican or Democratic Party. And it's not that easy to do that, but it can be done. The other one is that we need to recognize that there are people out there that want to support a message that aligns with where they want America to go. Remember that this particular presidential cycle is not going to be about small things. This isn't going to be about, to make up my favorite stupid example, this is not going to be about, you know, what should the retirement age of Social Security be? This is an election cycle. It's going to be about who's got the guts to stand up and say that Social Security is evil. That is not something you're going to hear from a Democrat. It's not something you're going to hear from a Republican. But it is something that we're going to have to say. There are people out there that are going to be willing to hear that. Those are the kind of people that we need to start meeting with. And we are. To be fair, we are meeting with them, and they'll start giving money in June.
Thank you. Please go ahead, yes? Lastly, Mr. Rechtenwald, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, if I find myself in D.C. as president, I would first of all clap
well, no, in this case, it's not as president. In this case, is prior to becoming president, you meet some K Street lobbyists. What do you say to them so they don't give money to the others?
I don't have anything to do with lobbyists per se.
Okay.
We do need, you know, I mean, I also don't, I believe in the free market, the free political market. So if people want to spend money on the Libertarian Party and we should try to convince them to do so, we should. But I don't think money is the answer here. I do agree with Mr. Hordenberger that the question is message. And it is not going to be the message of whittle away here, policy tweak there, so forth and so on. This is about, we need to take an axe at the state, to the root of the state. Now, that doesn't mean everything happens overnight. There can be transitional demands. It is very alt. It's kind of like alt libertarian to suggest that we demand it or else we take nothing. We take what we can get with the object of total dismantlement in the future.
Thank you. So I want to take one more question. Please go ahead.
What libertarian or classical liberal had the greatest impact on your thinking and why?
Okay. The question is, what libertarian thinker, you said, or philosopher, had the greatest impact on your life, on your thinking, and why? Let's cut this to 60 seconds. We are running short on time. If we could do that, start that, please, with you, Chase.
I'm going to give a fun answer. Trey Parker and Matt Stone are the libertarian thinkers that have influenced me in most of my life. And it's because they are unabashedly free speech. They don't. They take no prisoners. They say what they feel, and they don't hold up to sacred. They don't have sacred cows or anything like that. And so they've always been one who's never afraid to tackle a subject unapologetically and do so in a way that is entertaining and brings new eyeballs to the issue. This is what we need to be doing, is we need to have a little bit more pop culture libertarianism that brings people into the idea of the realms of freedom. And so my answer is Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
I love it. You made that so good. I'm going to cut it to 30 seconds now. Thank you for that. You just made it really good. So he just screwed you, Lars. Sorry. So 30 seconds now. Lars, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think to me it's politicians, just because I came to the Libertarian Party kind of later. I've always been a Libertarian, but I didn't know about the Libertarian Party because it's not doing a good job of getting the message out that there's actually a party to belong to. That's something that I want to change. I would say Ron Paul would be one, Gary Johnson would be another one, and Spike Cohen would be a third person that's helped me find my way to liberty thinking.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Chermott, please, 30 seconds.
Well, those are really terrific ones, especially Spike, who's has a habit of moving more buttons off of my table than Mike Chermott buttons off of my table, which really pisses me off, and I have allowed him to know that recently. So you'll notice on my table, there's no more Spike Cohen buttons there because he just irritates me. He is terrific in every way. Milton Friedman's my guy because he got to me so early. My father made me read Milton Friedman when I was a freshman in college, and I'll never forgive my dad for that. It forced me to come to libertarianism from what I would call the right-hand side, the efficiency side, and it wasn't until later as a police officer that I really came to libertarianism from the ethics side, which we should spend more time talking about, I think.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Rechtenwald, can you please answer that question? Also about 30 seconds, please.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not going to make any apologies. My libertarian mentor is Murray Rothbard. And the book that did most to change my thinking was The Anatomy of the State. In that book, he talks about the state as a parasitic evil, that is a force that is oppressive, that is exploitative, that has no function other than it's not productive. It has no function but to exploit and oppress. So the state tries to grow itself at all costs. And it is our business not only to stop that growth, but to dismantle it. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, very excellent. Mr. Hornberger, please, 30 seconds.
Well, undoubtedly, the founder of the Foundation for Economic Education, who was a man named Leonard Read, with a close second of Ludwig von Mises and Ayn Rand. And the big impact that these individuals had on me was the importance of principle. The principles are everything. That once you abandon your principles, you're lost, you're rudderless. And that it was through their principles, their uncompromising presentation of libertarianism, that I discovered that I was a libertarian that was able to break through this inches-thick indoctrination that I'd gotten in public schools. And that's why I say that's what this party needs. This party needs to lead America with its strict adherence to the party's principles.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead. 30 seconds. Yes.
I just want to use 30 seconds, by the way, to shout out a guy named John Mons. He's the man who brought me into the Libertarian Party. He was the first Libertarian to ever earn 1 million votes. He did so in the state of Georgia. And he brought me into the party because he knew, he spoke to me at a convention, and he said, "What's your one issue?" And I said, "I'm anti-war." And he said, "Welcome home to the Libertarian Party." He didn't litmus test me on anything else. He said, "Come down, sit down, talk with the other libertarians. You'll get more radical as you go." And I came in as an affected ex-Democrat. I'm now here as a radical minarchist. Trust me, we can do this, but we have to be willing to let people into the party who are not 100% libertarian today and let them grow into liberty. And that's what I want to do in our party.
Yes. Nice. Nice. All right, I will take we'll take one more. Stephen, did you have one? I do. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark. What's the question? Sorry. Yes.
One reason that you all end up in single digits is because of fear of voting for the bad guy among the big two.
Yep.
How do you combat that?
All right. It's a similar question before. We'll do 60 seconds if we could. One of the biggest issues that we deal with is people don't want to vote for us because they were afraid that if I vote for you, the other bad guy is going to win. How do we get around that fear? And that will start with, actually, you, Lars. You'll begin that one.
So I'm a big proponent of star voting or ranked choice voting because it allows us to have more options. And all my life, I've felt like we've been forced to choose between the lesser of two evils, that we have the illusion of choice in America. So I believe that ranked choice voting and star voting would help this tremendously to allow us to have better choices and get rid of this lesser of two evils crap.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, you guys are great. Thank you. Good questions. All right. So, yes, Mr. Tremont, please go ahead.
That is the long-term answer. The short-term answer, and I'm not sure if Mark meant it in the short run or the long run, but in the short run, we are going to be able to make the point that it is our values that align with what you are thinking as an American voter, and you need to start voting for your values. If you're not voting for your principles, for how you feel the world actually should work, for the style of government that you believe you should have, you're wasting your vote. Stop wasting your vote. This message will resonate with more Americans than ever before in this particular presidential cycle because we're going to have so many parties involved, number one. I should say candidates, not so many parties. Number two, because we have a much bigger opportunity than ever before, the likely nominee in the Republican Party is a crappy candidate. The likely nominee in the Democratic Party is a crappy candidate. And it's not just, those of us in the room who feel this way. People in their own parties feel this way. This is going to create a huge opportunity. If we're out there leading with our principles and our values, we are going to get a look like never before. We need to tell people to stop wasting their vote.
Thank you. Excellent. Mr. Rechtenwald, 1 minute, please.
Yes, I think that we gain trust for the party by building it from the ground up. We can't be so deluded as to think that we can, from the top down, inspire this kind of confidence in the Libertarian Party. We have yet to do the work to build trust and proof of concept at the local level. And that's what we need to do. If you know your neighbor is actually a libertarian and is running something, and you see how well they're operating as according to principle, then you have more trust in the Libertarian Party per se, and then you can build this up the ladder, not down the ladder, up the ladder. That's how it works.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Holmberger.
We already know the results of the 2024 election. We already know that. With respect to the Libertarian Party presidential candidate, that's the Wall Street Journal poll. They just came out with a poll. The LP presidential candidate gets 1% right now. Same thing we got 3 years ago. Nothing's changed. We already know the results. People are going to vote Republican. People are going to vote Democrat. You're not going to change that. This fantasy of the Ron Paul voters coming and voting for us in droves is a fantasy. It's not going to happen. The only way to break out is to abandon this message that we've been running for 20 years of reform and Republican light, immigration reform, monetary reform, educational reform, school vouchers, health savings accounts, Social Security privatization. Those Republicans who would like that message are not going to cross party lines and come and vote for us. We need to find our own block of voters, and the only way to find them is with our principles, the original principles on which this party was founded. Without those principles, that block of voters is going to stay at home.
Thank you. And last but not least, Chase Oliver, please.
So how do we remove the fear of the voters? Pretty simply, there's two things I would want to say. First off, if you continue to vote for the lesser of two evils, you're continuing to vote for evil, and the quality of candidates, as we have seen throughout my lifetime, is getting worse and worse and worse among the two-party system. The only way to stop this is to reject voting within the two parties. The only way to reject voting for the lesser of two evils is to reject all evil and to vote for something completely different and have a candidate with the energy and enthusiasm to get out among as many voters as possible to put this message forward. This is what I'm trying to do in this campaign. Everyone on this dais wants to get more libertarian voters. I have the energy and enthusiasm to travel around and meet voters where they are. Part of this is not being inflexible and being able to talk to voters and understand their concerns and where they come from and be able to demonstrate how liberty fixes those issues. That's what we have to be willing to do. And then lastly, we have to recognize that so many people who are within the Republican or Democratic Party are ready to reject those parties. Trust me, I know this from the Stop Cop City movement in Atlanta. The city government in Atlanta is all Democrats, and they're abusing all the Democratic voters out there. With Democrats like that, who needs Republicans? It's time for something different, and libertarians have to be able to offer that difference in a way that's real, stark, and with real energy. I want to do that.
All right. Thank you, guys. Yes, thank you. That is the end of our question and answers. We're now going to move to 60-second. I'm sorry, for most of you, 90-second closing statements. Chase, you will have 60. The rest of you will have 90-second closing statements. And I'll begin with now. Tremont, it's your turn to start. You'll begin with our 90-second closing statements.
Excellent. Finally, I get to go first.
Yep.
Look, this is a big opportunity. We all know that. This is our time. This is our moment. And I'd like to argue that it's not just our moment in terms of being an opportunity. This is our obligation. We are libertarians. We are the philosophical descendants of the people that put this government together, that did so for only one legitimate reason, that wrote the Declaration of Independence, that wrote the Constitution, and did so to protect our individual liberty. Nobody else comes across the North Atlantic in the 18th century for any less reason than this. If you believe that a Republican or a Democrat politician is going to stand up and lead the charge back toward the Constitution, you're waiting for something that's not going to happen. Our government has literally gone off the rails in too many instances and figuratively continues to day by week by month by year. It is up to us to lead this charge. We have to get right what we have not been able to get right in the past. We have to run a credible campaign full of professionalism, yes, but at the same time, we need to brand ourselves correctly for a change. We need to run a principles-forward campaign. This is why I'm running on the Gold New Deal. We have to run something that people will recognize as a completely different choice from Republicans or Democrats. This campaign will not be mistaken for something that you have seen before. This is the way that we must run in order to correctly brand our party, as well as to reach as many voters, donors, and media as possible. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Mr. Rechtenwald, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. So what do I mean by wrecking the regime? I mean finding your local community, your local church group, volunteer organization, issue coalition, township, county seat, et cetera, and to run for office at these levels. How do we gain the confidence of the American people? By doing it on the ground. We are not going to get somebody in place to show them from the top down what has to be done. So why then am I running for office? Because this is the message that needs to get out and that no one else is voicing. This is the message of liberty. This is the message of actually wresting power from the federal government and vesting in the people at the local level. So I ask you to please get involved with wrecking the regime yourself. Go to wrecktheregime.com. That's wrecktheregime.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If I could go to Mr. Hornberger, 90 seconds, please.
Yeah, thank you all very much for coming out, and thanks for inviting me to talk to you. This is a time for a lot of soul searching in this party. You know, what are you here for? What's your life about? Why do you donate to this party? Why do you participate in this thing? What are you here for? And I bet that most of you are here because you want to live in a free society. That's why I'm running. I want to live in a free society before I pass from this life. And I'm not going to be living in a free society if I've got Social Security that's being expounded on and continued for 50 to 70 years, or Medicare and Medicaid, or this immigration socialist system, or this educational socialist system, or the biggest killer in the world, the national security state. None of that. That's where the soul searching comes in. They all say, oh, the reason we're getting this 1% is we don't have enough money or enough publicity. Nonsense. It's because we're carrying a bad message, and we've been carrying a bad message. And I got a confession to make to you, every one of you. I'm with the 99%. I vote Libertarian to get our numbers up, but I reject this message as much as the 99 or the 98% reject it. It's a bad message, and it deserves to be rejected. What we need to be doing in this party is leading America to liberty. And the only way we do that is with our principles, not this reform claptrap. Not this Republican-like claptrap of immigration controls and simplifying and streamlining and all that nonsense. We lead America to freedom with our principles, and that's what this campaign is all about.
Thank you. Chase, 1 minute, please.
Okay, 60 seconds. I'll do it fast. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for having this debate. I want to be our presidential candidate because it's time for a real change in this country. We have had 20th century politicians controlling the government throughout the entire 21st century, and it has to stop right here and now. My generation is the generation that got sent to fight the war on terror after 9/11 and had to suffer the consequences. My generation is the generation that right as we were getting started in the economy, we saw banks get bailed out and everyone else get screwed in the 2008 fallout. And it's my generation that's right now trying to raise families all over the country with record runaway inflation caused by Joe Biden. It's time for us to provide a real alternative to those two-party system. And I want to be out there on all 50 states supporting real libertarian wins. That means ballot access wins. That means party status wins. That means supporting local libertarian candidates that can win and start dismantling the state at their local level all over the country. I want to do this. I want to fight for this party because this is my political home. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to sit here and fight for freedom every single day, unapologetically. And if you want to join this message, go to votechaseoliver.com right now, and let's keep fighting across all 50 states to put a passionate libertarian message forward that the two-party system can no longer ignore. And that's what we're going to bring in 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mapstead, 90 seconds, please.
Thank you. I talked about the rigged system. The system is completely rigged against you by your government. We need to unrig the system, the education system, the election system, our healthcare system, our criminal justice system. All these systems are rigged against you. I can win an electoral vote on election night. I firmly believe that I can do this. I do not think there is anything that anybody else has presented that can put libertarians on the map better than that. We need to get our message out. We need to have media paying attention to us nonstop. And this plan that I have put forth is to do exactly that. In Riverside County, Jeff Hewitt won his supervisor role with 2.3 million people and $500,000. The districts that I'm looking for to win electoral votes only have 600,000 people in them, and not many of those people vote. This is a very achievable goal to put us on the map and have people across America talking about what is a libertarian and how do I find out what they are. I want everyone in America to Google what is a libertarian. That's how I found out I was a libertarian, and I believe a lot more people would join our cause simply because we would show that we are actually capable of winning. We have not shown that to the American people, and it's time to show that we can win by winning an electoral vote on election night. Thank you.
Wow, that's perfect. Go ahead.
I died. Go to lars24.com, or you can find me all over social media at Libertarian Lars, or on Facebook, Lars for President. Thank you very much.
There we go. Thank you, guys. I want to let you all know that there is still going to be an event at 6:30 this evening, and we are still selling tickets to such an event at the door if you want to go check it out. We have many cool speakers. We have Mr. Joe, Josie the Redhead Libertarian, Maj Touré, and Clint Russell all going to be speaking. So if you can make any of those, we will be selling tickets at the door. For those of you who are now here and who joined us, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for giving us your time and energy. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Larry Sharpe.